I watched my husband sign our divorce papers with a smile on his face. His mistress laughed beside him, adjusting her white dress like she was at a wedding. They had no idea what was coming. When my brother walked through those courtroom doors with 20 security guards behind him, the color drained from their faces. I leaned forward and whispered to Daniel, "I warned you. What happens next will blow your mind. The revenge, the secrets, the complete destruction of everyone who betrayed me. Don't skip a second because this story gets crazier with every minute. Let's begin. My name is Miriam, and 3 years ago, I made a decision that would change everything. I decided to hide who I really was. You see, when my father passed away, he left me something most people only dream about, an $8 billion tech empire. Yes, billion with a B, Hartley Industries. Maybe you've heard of it, maybe you haven't. At 29 years old, I became one of the richest women in the country, and absolutely nobody knew. I had watched my father's life. The fake friends, the gold diggers, the people who smiled to his face while calculating what they could take from him. I saw how lonely he was despite being surrounded by hundreds of people. When he died, I made myself a promise. I would live differently. I would find real love, build a real family, experience real life. Not the fake, polished, transactional existence that comes with being a billionaire. So I did something crazy. I handed over the daily operations to my older brother Adam. He's brilliant, trustworthy, and understood exactly what I wanted. My father's advisor, Mr. Harrison, a man who had been with our family for 30 years, managed the investments and legal matters. They ran everything while I disappeared into normalcy. I rented a small apartment, started shopping at regular stores, and lived like any other young woman trying to figure out her life. That's when I met Daniel. It was at a tiny coffee shop on a rainy Tuesday morning. He was sitting by the window, sketching building designs on napkins, completely absorbed in his work. His coffee had gone cold. There was something beautiful about his focus, his passion. When he looked up and smiled at me, I felt something I'd never felt before. He didn't see dollar signs. He just saw me. We talked for 3 hours that day. He told me about his dreams of becoming a great architect, of designing buildings that would make people feel something. He was a junior architect at a small firm, struggling but hopeful. I told him I was between jobs, figuring things out. It wasn't technically a lie. We started dating, and for the first time in my life, I felt normal. I felt real. A year later, we got married in a simple ceremony at a courthouse. No fancy wedding, no media coverage, just us and a few friends. Daniel had no idea that the woman who promised to love him was worth more than he could ever imagine. And that's exactly how I wanted it. When our daughter Sophie was born 2 years into our marriage, I thought I had finally achieved it. The perfect, normal, happy life. I played my role perfectly. Every morning, I'd wake up early, make breakfast, get Daniel ready for work. I'd spend my days with Sophie, taking her to the park, reading her stories, being a mother. But here's what Daniel didn't know. While Sophie napped, I was making billion-dollar decisions on my laptop. While he thought I was at book club on Thursday evenings, I was attending board meetings through secure video calls. The apartment we lived in? I owned the entire building. His architecture firm that started landing bigger and bigger clients? I was his biggest anonymous client, funneling projects to him through shell companies. I built his success while letting him think he built it himself. Because I loved him. Because I wanted him to feel proud, accomplished, worthy. I wanted him to love himself the way I loved him. Our life was simple but happy, or so I thought. Everything changed about 6 months ago. Daniel hired a new assistant. Her name was Angela, and the moment I met her at his office party, I knew something was off. She was 26, beautiful in that calculated way, dressed in designer knockoffs that she tried to pass off as real, but what bothered me wasn't how she looked. It was how she looked at my husband, like he was a prize to be won, like I was an obstacle to be removed. She touched his arm when she talked to him, laughed too loud at his jokes, complimented him constantly. Daniel seemed oblivious, or maybe he pretended to be. He started staying late at the office. Big project, he'd say. Important client. I'd wait up for him with dinner getting cold on the table while Sophie asked why Daddy wasn't home to read her bedtime story. Then came the phone calls during dinner. The mysterious perfume on his shirts that definitely wasn't mine. The receipts I found in his pockets for expensive restaurants I'd never been to. I'm not stupid. I knew exactly what was happening. But I wanted to be wrong. I wanted to believe in the man I married, the man I'd built everything for. One night, I couldn't take it anymore. Daniel had fallen asleep on the couch after coming home at midnight, claiming he'd been working. His phone was on the coffee table and I picked it up. I knew his password. It was Sophie's birthday. My hands were shaking as I opened his messages, and what I found destroyed me. Hundreds of messages with Angela. I love you. Can't wait until we're finally together. She's so boring, you deserve better. Photos of them kissing in his office, in his car, in hotel rooms. Plans to leave me once he figured out the money situation. Angela's message from just 3 days ago said, "Once you dump the housewife, we can finally live our life. I'm tired of hiding." I sat there in the dark, holding his phone, watching my marriage crumble in text message form. But here's the thing, I didn't cry. Not then. Instead, something cold and calculating took over. The businesswoman in me, the one who'd been hidden for 3 years, woke up. I took screenshots of everything and sent them to myself. Then I deleted the evidence that I'd been in his phone. I had learned from the best. My father always said, "Never react in anger. Plan in silence." The next morning, I confronted him calmly over breakfast. Sophie was still sleeping. I placed my phone on the table showing the messages. "End it," I said simply. Daniel's face went pale, then red, but he didn't apologize. He didn't beg for forgiveness. Instead, he got defensive, angry even. "You went through my phone?" he shouted. "You know what, Miriam? Yes, I'm seeing Angela, because you're boring. All you do is stay home with Sophie. Angela understands my ambitions. She supports my career. She's exciting." I stood up slowly, looking him directly in the eyes. "Daniel, I'm going to say this once. End this affair. Come back to your family. This is your only warning. If you don't, things will get very bad for you. I promise you that." He actually laughed in my face. "Or what, you'll leave me? With what money, Miriam? You have nothing. You are nothing without me." Right then, his phone rang. Angela's name flashed on the screen. He answered it right in front of me, right in front of the woman he'd married, the mother of his child. "Don't worry, baby," he said into the phone, staring at me with contempt. "I'm asking for a divorce right now." And he did. Just like that. 3 years of marriage ended over breakfast while our daughter slept in the next room. He said he wanted a divorce, that he'd already contacted a lawyer. "You'll get some child support, that's it. You contributed nothing to this marriage financially. The apartment is in my name. You can't even afford a lawyer. Just make this easy, Miriam." I said nothing. I just nodded. Inside, I was already 10 steps ahead, planning everything. Adam and Mr. Harrison were going to get very busy phone calls later that day. The next 3 months were the hardest of my life. Daniel moved Angela into our apartment before the divorce was even finalized. I had to take Sophie and leave, moving into what Daniel thought was a small rental across town. He didn't know I owned that building, too. Every time he picked up Sophie for his weekends, Angela would be there in the car, smiling at me like she'd won some competition. Daniel's lawyer was an aggressive man named Mr. Peterson who treated me like garbage from day one. Phone calls where he'd say things like, "My client is being very generous, offering you anything at all." Court filings that painted me as an unemployed, uneducated woman who'd been living off Daniel's success. They were building a case to take everything, including my daughter. Finally, the court date arrived. I dressed in a plain gray dress, nothing special, no jewelry except my wedding ring, which I wore for effect. I drove myself to the courthouse in my regular car, while Daniel arrived in a new luxury sedan that I knew he couldn't actually afford. He'd bought it with money from a project that I had funded. The irony was almost funny. He stepped out wearing an expensive suit, new shoes, designer watch. Mr. Peterson was beside him, carrying a thick briefcase, and there was Angela, dressed in a white dress like this was her victory celebration. She linked her arm through Daniel's as they walked into the courthouse, and I watched my husband not pull away, not even have the decency to hide his affair on our divorce day. Inside the courtroom, I sat alone on one side while the three of them sat together on the other. Angela kept whispering to Daniel, giggling, touching his hand. Mr. Peterson was shuffling papers with this smug look on his face. The message was clear. I was alone, helpless, and about to lose everything. The hearing began, and Mr. Peterson came out swinging. "Your Honor, my client has been the sole provider in this marriage for 3 years. Mrs. Miriam has no job, no income, no education beyond high school. She has been living entirely off my client's hard work and success. He paid for her food, her clothes, the roof over her head, everything." Daniel nodded along, adding, "I gave her everything, Your Honor, and this is how she repays me, making this difficult." Angela actually giggled from her seat. The judge gave her a sharp look, but she didn't seem to care. Mr. Peterson continued, "We're requesting primary custody of the minor child, Sophie. My client can provide stability, a proper home, financial security. The mother, unfortunately, has no means to care for the child adequately." My heart stopped. They were trying to take Sophie, my baby girl. I gripped the edge of the table so hard my knuckles turned white, but I kept my face neutral. Calm. I'd learned how to control my expressions in countless board meetings. This was just another negotiation, except the stakes were my entire world. "We're offering Mrs. Miriam $1,500 per month in support out of the generosity of my client's heart," Mr. Peterson said, like he was doing me some huge favor. "And supervised visitation every other weekend. We believe this is more than fair given her contribution to the marriage, which was essentially nothing." The judge looked at me with what I thought was pity. "Mrs. Miriam, do you have legal representation?" Before I could answer, Daniel spoke up. "She couldn't afford a lawyer, Your Honor. That should tell you everything you need to know about her situation." Angela whispered something to Daniel, and he smiled. They were enjoying this. Enjoying watching me being humiliated, destroyed, separated from my daughter. Mr. Peterson placed divorce papers on the table in front of me. "Your Honor, we'd like to expedite this. My client has been patient long enough. If Mrs. Miriam would simply sign the agreement, we can all move forward." The judge looked at me. "Mrs. Miriam, do you accept these terms?" I looked down at the papers. Terms that would give me almost nothing, take away my daughter, and let Daniel walk away thinking he'd won. I picked up the pen slowly. Daniel leaned back in his chair, confident, victorious. Angela was openly smiling now, her hand on Daniel's shoulder. She mouthed to him, "We did it." Mr. Peterson said loudly, "Your Honor, she has no choice, really. She has no resources, no options. This is the best outcome she could hope for." I brought the pen to the paper. My hand was steady. I looked at Daniel one more time. He was smirking. 3 years of marriage, building his career, raising his child, loving him unconditionally, and this was how it ended, with him smirking while trying to take everything from me. That's when the courtroom doors burst open. The sound echoed through the room like thunder. Everyone turned. 20 men in black suits entered in formation, professional security guards with earpieces, moving with military precision. The bailiff stood up, confused. The judge sat forward. Daniel's smirk vanished. Behind the security detail walked my brother Adam, dressed in an expensive charcoal suit that probably cost more than Daniel's car. Beside him was Mr. Harrison in a perfect 3-piece tan suit, carrying 2 leather briefcases that I knew contained the end of Daniel's world. The energy in the entire courtroom shifted. You could feel the power, the money, the danger rolling off them in waves. Daniel stood up, his face confused. "What's going on? Who are these people?" I put the pen down slowly, stood up, smoothed my gray dress, and smiled. Really smiled for the first time in months. "I warned you, Daniel. I told you this would happen." The judge banged his gavel. "Order! Who are you people? This is a closed hearing." Adam stepped forward with the kind of confidence that comes from running billion-dollar companies before most people finish college. "I'm Adam Hartley, Your Honor. I'm Mrs. Miriam's brother and Chief Operating Officer of Hartley Industries. I apologize for the dramatic entrance, but we felt it was necessary given the gross misrepresentation of facts occurring in this courtroom. Mr. Peterson shot up. Your Honor, this is highly irregular. I object to— Mr. Harrison's voice cut through the room like a knife. Calm, measured, absolutely authoritative. I am Theodore Harrison, senior partner at Harrison & Associates. I represent Mrs. Miriam Hartley, and I think you'll find everything we're about to present is entirely regular and legal. He opened his briefcase and placed a document on the judge's bench. Your Honor, Mrs. Miriam Hartley is not, as opposing counsel has stated, an unemployed woman with no resources. She is, in fact, the sole owner and chief executive officer of Hartley Industries, with a current personal net worth of $8.3 billion. The courtroom went completely silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Daniel's face drained of all color. Angela's mouth literally fell open. Mr. Peterson looked like he'd been hit by a truck. The judge picked up the document, reading it carefully. His eyes widened. These are audited financial statements, property deeds, corporate filings with the SEC, all authentic, Your Honor, Mr. Harrison continued. Everything can be verified. Mrs. Hartley has been the sole owner of Hartley Industries since her father's passing 4 years ago. She chose to keep this information private for personal reasons. Daniel finally found his voice. Miriam, this is a joke, right? Some kind of trick? I turned to face him fully for the first time. My voice came out cold, controlled, nothing like the soft-spoken wife he thought he knew. No joke, Daniel. This is who I've always been. You just never bothered to really know me. Adam stepped forward, placing more documents on the table. Let's clarify a few things that were misrepresented here today. The apartment Mr. Daniel claims is his? My sister owns the entire building, has owned it for 6 years. It's one of 47 properties in her real estate portfolio. Daniel sat down heavily, like his legs had given out. Mr. Harrison continued, his voice clinical, destroying them piece by piece. Mr. Daniel's architecture firm, which he believes is successful due to his own merit, has received 87% of its contracts from shell companies owned by Mrs. Hartley. She has been anonymously funding his entire career for 3 years, ensuring he had the success and confidence he needed to thrive. That's not— Daniel tried to speak, but Adam cut him off. We have documentation of every contract, every payment, every project. Your success, Mr. Daniel, was built by the woman you're trying to humiliate in this courtroom. Angela suddenly stood up, grabbing her purse. The judge's voice boomed. Sit down, miss. You're named in the countersuit. She froze. Countersuit? What countersuit? Mr. Harrison smiled, and it wasn't pleasant. Mrs. Hartley is filing a countersuit against both Mr. Daniel and Miss Angela. Mr. Daniel has been systematically stealing from marital assets, specifically from joint accounts funded entirely by Mrs. Hartley. These funds were used to purchase gifts, trips, and other items for Miss Angela. He produced more documents, receipts, bank statements, transaction records, $230,000 on jewelry, $100,000 on trips to Hawaii, Paris, and the Bahamas, $75,000 on a down payment for an apartment he planned to move into with Miss Angela, $25,000 in miscellaneous gifts. Total theft, $430,000. Daniel's lawyer, Mr. Peterson, was frantically flipping through papers. Your Honor, we had no knowledge of— Of course you didn't, Adam interrupted. Because you didn't do your due diligence. You assumed. You saw a quiet woman in a gray dress and decided she was nobody. That was your first mistake. I finally spoke, my voice carrying across the courtroom. Daniel, I gave you everything. A home, a family, a career. I loved you for who you were, not what you had. I wanted you to love me the same way. But you couldn't do that, could you? You threw it away for her. I pointed at Angela, who was crying now, mascara running down her face. I warned you that morning. I told you to end it. Told you things would get bad if you didn't. You laughed at me. Called me nothing. Well, Daniel, here's what nothing looks like. Mr. Harrison laid out our terms. Mrs. Hartley is demanding full custody of Sophie, with Mr. Daniel receiving supervised visitation once per month, pending psychological evaluation. She is demanding immediate repayment of the $430,000 stolen, plus $500,000 in damages for emotional distress. She is demanding Mr. Daniel vacate her property within 30 days. Additionally, Adam said, and this was the part I'd been waiting for, effective immediately, all Hartley-funded contracts with Mr. Daniel's architecture firm are terminated. That represents 87% of his current business. We estimate he'll be forced into bankruptcy within 60 days. Daniel's face went from white to red. He stood up, shouting, "You can't do this! You can't destroy my business, that's my livelihood!" "It's private business, Mr. Daniel," Mr. Harrison said calmly. "We can terminate contracts at will. You should have read the fine print." "Miriam, please!" Daniel's voice cracked. "Think about Sophie. She needs her father." I looked at him. This man I'd loved. This man I'd built up. This man who'd betrayed me in the worst possible way. "I am thinking about Sophie. That's why I'm doing this. She deserves better than a father who abandons his family for his assistant. Better than a father who steals from her mother. Better than a father who would try to take her away out of pure spite." Angela was sobbing loudly now. "Daniel, do something. You said she was just a housewife. You said we'd be together." Daniel couldn't even look at her. He was staring at me like he was seeing me for the first time. "I didn't know," he whispered. "Miriam, I swear, I didn't know who you were." "Exactly," I said. "You didn't know. You never tried to know. You saw what you wanted to see. A simple housewife you could control, use, and discard. But that was never who I was." The judge, who had been reading through all the documents, finally spoke. "I've reviewed the evidence presented. It's substantial and appears authentic. Mr. Peterson, did you verify your client's claims about the marital assets?" Mr. Peterson was sweating. "Your Honor, we relied on our client's representations." "Which were false?" the judge interrupted. "This court rules in favor of Mrs. Hartley on all counts. Full custody to the mother. Supervised visitation for the father, once monthly. Mr. Daniel is ordered to repay $430,000 plus $500,000 in damages. He has 30 days to vacate the property. Miss Angela is hereby ordered to stay 500 feet away from Mrs. Hartley and her daughter at all times." Daniel collapsed back into his chair. Angela was hysterical, her lawyer already gathering his things to leave. Mr. Peterson looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. I gathered my things slowly, deliberately. My security team formed around me. Adam handed me Sophie's favorite stuffed rabbit that he'd been holding. "She's waiting in the car with the nanny," he said softly. "I told her Mommy would be home soon." As I walked toward the courtroom doors, Daniel suddenly fell to his knees, actually on his knees, in front of everyone. "Miriam, please, I'm sorry, I didn't know. We can fix this. Think of Sophie. She needs her father. I love you. I always loved you." I stopped walking, looked down at him, this man on his knees, begging. I knelt down to his level, making him look me in the eyes. "Daniel, I am thinking of Sophie. I'm thinking about how she deserves a parent who puts her first, who doesn't abandon her for an affair, who doesn't try to take her from her mother out of greed. I'm thinking she deserves better than you." I stood up. My guards closed ranks around me. At the courtroom doors, I turned back one final time. Daniel was still on his knees. Mr. Peterson was packing up in shame, and Angela was huddled in the corner, alone, crying. "You had a billionaire who loved you for free," I said, my voice carrying through the silent courtroom, "who supported your dreams, built your success, asked for nothing but loyalty and love. And you traded it all for a gold digger who only wanted what she thought you had. The irony is beautiful, isn't it?" I walked out into the hallway where Sophie was waiting with Adam. She ran to me, and I picked her up, holding her tight. "Mommy, Uncle Adam got me ice cream." "Did he?" I kissed her head, breathing in her perfect smell. "That was nice of him." She hugged me tighter. "Are we going home now?" "Yes, baby, we're going home." Behind me, I could still hear Daniel shouting my name, his voice echoing through the courthouse halls. Security kept him back. He would never touch us again. never hurt us again. That was 6 months ago. Life has changed dramatically since then. Sophie and I live in a beautiful penthouse downtown with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view of the entire city. She has her own playroom, filled with toys and books. Adam moved into the guest house to help with her, and she adores her uncle. Every night we have dinner together as a family. A real family. Daniel lost everything, exactly as we'd calculated. His business collapsed within 40 days. The house, the car, everything was repossessed. He works as a cashier now at a grocery store, barely making enough to cover his court-ordered payments. He's tried to contact me 47 times. I blocked him after the first 10. His monthly supervised visits with Sophie are tense and brief. She's starting to forget what life was like before. Angela left him the day after the court hearing. I found out later she'd already moved on to her next target, some other ambitious man she thought had money. She and Daniel deserve each other, honestly. Mr. Peterson was disbarred for misconduct and failure to perform due diligence. Turns out he'd cut corners with other clients, too. Our case was just the one that finally caught up with him. As for me, I went public with my identity. No more hiding. I run Hartley Industries openly now, and it's thriving. I started a foundation for people going through difficult divorces, especially those being financially abused or manipulated. We provide legal support, resources, and protection. Every week, I get letters from people thanking me for my story, for showing them they're not powerless. Sophie is thriving. She's happy, healthy, surrounded by love. She goes to an excellent school, has wonderful friends, and is growing into a strong, confident little girl. Sometimes she asks about her father, but less and less as time goes on. I never speak badly about him to her. That's not my place. When she's older, she'll understand what happened. For now, she just knows she's safe, loved, and home. People often ask me if I regret hiding my identity from Daniel, if I wish I'd told him from the beginning. The answer is no. Because if I had, I would never have known the truth. I would never have known that he loved my money more than he loved me. I would have spent my whole life wondering if he was real or just another gold digger with a better mask. This way, I know, he loved me when he thought I was nobody, and he betrayed me when he thought I was powerless. That tells me everything I needed to know about who he really was. They thought I was weak because I was quiet. They thought I was poor because I was humble. They forgot something important. The most dangerous person in the room is the one who has nothing left to lose, except I had everything to lose. My daughter, my dignity, my life. And that's exactly why I won. So what would you have done in my position? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If this story gave you chills, hit that like button and subscribe for more jaw-dropping true stories. Share this with anyone who needs to remember their worth, who needs to know that being underestimated can be the greatest advantage of all. Thank you for watching, and remember, karma is real. And sometimes, she's a billionaire.